Welcome to Making and Baking. Today we're baking chicken pot pie. It might sound a little bit intimidating, but it's actually pretty simple to make. We've got 800 grams of chicken thigh diced up here, 2 carrots and 2 celery stalks chopped up, 250 grams of mushrooms. It's a quarter of a cup of butter and a third of a cup of plain flour, half a cup of cream, 1.5 cups of chicken broth, our salt, pepper, herbs and spices. Today I'm using oregano and basil, and our homemade short crust pie pastry, which we made yesterday. So you'll see that video a little bit later on when we go to roll out our pastry for our pies. To get straight into it, we're going to cook our chicken over a medium heat. Now I'm going to put a little bit of butter in the pan to cook our chicken with. We want to make sure the chicken is seared on every single side. And we've chosen chicken thighs today instead of chicken fillets, chicken breast fillets, because they retain their moisture a little bit better. And we're cooking this filling twice, once now and once in the oven when we bake the pies. As you can see, our chicken has started to change color, but it isn't yet cooked all the way through. That's okay because we're going to continue cooking this filling. Next up is our celery and our carrots. And these go in and we cook them for about 2 to 4 minutes until they've begun to soften. Our vegetables have softened up. Our chicken's going well, and you can see quite a lot of the juices have come out of our veggies. Next in is our flour to create our roux and help thicken up our sauce. Stir the flour in, and we're cooking this until the flour browns up a little bit and cooks down. Now at this point, if you need it, you'd add that little bit of butter. I don't need the whole butter that I've got to set aside for this because the flour has thickened it up nicely without any extra. So I've currently got it on low heat. And next in is our broth. We're going to add it slowly so we don't end up with lumps, and then our cream. And we want that flour to dissolve in the broth. Once that's all mixed in, you're not seeing those lumps, the cream can go in. Next, we're putting in our mushrooms, our herbs, our spices, which are oregano and basil. And then we're going to let it thicken up a little bit. The moment it's still a little bit runny, we want it to comfortably coat the back of that spoon and be a lot thicker. I'm adding how much? It's about 1/4 teaspoon of both basil and oregano. Now in a little bit, I will taste this, see if it needs any extra salt and pepper. Ooh, somebody's grumpy. Taste test. I definitely think it's salty enough, maybe a little bit more pepper. Now the final ingredient in this mixture, it's the one that I forgot. You can find this way, you got to check the description of all the ingredients. It's 1 cup of frozen peas. Alrighty, this can come off the heat now. And we'll move on to getting our pastry ready. We're making it a day in advance because it needs at least an hour to chill in the fridge before we roll it out. Or we can even leave it in the fridge for up to 2 days. So overnight will be perfect. This recipe is so simple. It's 5 ingredients, and with the food processor, it'll take me no time at all to finish it. It's 185 grams of flour, plain or all-purpose. We've got 30 grams of sugar. It's 1/2 teaspoon of salt. coming out. And then we're going to blitz it so it's all mixed in, and then we'll add our butter. Now, what we're looking for when we put this 115 grams of really chilled butter in is a breadcrumb consistency. Now I'm trying to avoid putting my hands in here because we want that butter to stay nice and cold and in chunks. It's got very much a fine breadcrumb texture. Now next we'll be adding our ice cold water. We're going to add anywhere from 2 to 4 tablespoons in. It'll depend. What we want is the mixture to come together when we squeeze it to form that dough ball. So we'll start with 2 and then we'll go from there. I'm going to add 2 more tablespoons. So that's 4 total of our ice cold water. As you can see, when I press the crumb together, it comes together. So that's all done. We're going to pour it out onto a cling film wrap, push it all together, put it in the fridge, and we're good to go. And we're going to push it together. We don't want the dough too wet to feel slimy, and we don't want it so dry that it feels like sand. I don't know if you can see, but there's tiny little bits of butter all the way through it, which is exactly what we want. We didn't want the butter to melt, and it hasn't. We're going to wrap this and put it in the fridge. All done. My pastry's been sitting on the bench for about 40 minutes, just so it's not quite as hard as when it came out of the fridge, and I'll be able to roll it out. Now, this is the ramekin I'm putting my chicken pot pies in. You can choose to do it in one big pie mold or in the smaller ones. I like the smaller ones, individual serves. Now I've rolled mine out to about 1/2 centimeter thickness. Gonna cut around. Now I'm only doing a lid for this one today. You could easily make the whole pie. Alrighty, we're all ready to fill our ramekin with our chicken pot pie. As you can see, I've buttered the edges just so that the pastry does stick, but it doesn't bake on when we get to the other end. Now that's plenty. It doesn't need to be overly full. That'll be perfect. Now I'm just doing the top of our pie. I'm gonna press a fork along the edges just to help it stick. Done. Next up, we need to paint it with some milk just to help it get that golden brown color in the oven. And then also create some steam holes. So we'll create some slits in the pastry so that the steam can escape. If we don't do that, it'll just burst through. I always like to do the traditional pie star. Now this goes in the oven at 215 degrees Celsius for 20 minutes. Then we turn the oven down to 180 degrees Celsius for 40 minutes. Then it should all be baked, ready to go. I would recommend leaving it aside for 20 minutes to cool down, otherwise you will burn your mouth. Here's our pot pie all done with our homemade pastry. We're going to give it a go. It's only been sitting out for about 10-15 minutes, so it still might be a little bit too hot, but I can't wait. Really flaky. Oh, you can see that steam. You really get that creaminess with the cream that you've added with the beef broth or the chicken broth. It's fantastic. I really love it. The peas, the veggies, the chicken. It's not dry. Just gonna have a little bit more. My chicken is beautiful and tender. There's no dryness in there at all. It's fantastic. Would definitely recommend you try this. It's one of my absolute favorites. Steam's fogging up my glazes.